Hi, I'm Ferreira, Senior Instructor here at Colorado State University. Today we'll be talking through the all-state bass clarinet excerpts, and we're going to start with the first excerpt. This is number 9, marked Allegretto. In this excerpt, there are just a few small points I want to make sure that we address as you're preparing this material for your auditions this year. The first is making sure that we're playing these dotted rhythms in this particular excerpt correctly. So one of the best ways to do that is to make sure that we're keeping an accurate subdivision underneath. So in this opening, when we're looking at a beat time of 3/8 is our time signature, and the rhythm is pretty consistent throughout. We have these dotted 16ths plus 30-second notes with them. So we want to make sure that we're playing those dots accurately. One of the best ways to do that is to make sure that you're feeling the underlying pulse. So underneath those dotted 16th notes, we want to make sure that we're feeling 3 30-second notes in relationship to that length. So one way I would suggest practicing this is to articulate out that subdivision underneath when you're playing with the metronome at home. So I'm going to play through the first 2 measures with this subdivision articulated out so you can feel exactly where to place that last 30-second note in each of these dotted rhythms. So here's what that would sound like with our met here. So here's our metronome on 63 where this is marked. And with this subdivision, we want to make sure that we're hearing that underlying pulse. So here's the first 2 measures with that underlying subdivision. So being really accurate about where you place that 30-second note after the dotted 16th note is going to be one thing that's important throughout this excerpt. Then the other thing that I want to make sure that we're kind of dealing with here is emphasizing the strong parts of the beat. Because we're in 3/8, we want to make sure that we're really putting a lot of emphasis on beats 1, 2, and 3. So one example of this is in measure 3. We want to make sure we're really supporting the C, the A, and then the F sharp. So we want to be feeling those big, strong beats a little more heavily than we're feeling the notes that occur right after them. So one way to practice something like measure 3 would be to leave the 30-second notes out and just really practice focusing your energy on those big beat patterns in measure 3. So one way I would kind of practice that is to take out the 30-second notes in those bars and just play the big beats. So here's bar 3 and bar 4, just emphasizing those big beats. So I can find that exercise can be really helpful for making sure that we're hearing the melodic line correctly. Another thing to make sure that you're really dealing with, the only real differentiation of rhythm in this particular excerpt are the triplets in the second to last measure. So you want to make sure that when we're relieving this subdivision of 30-second notes within our dotted 16ths, that we're able to make that transition to the triplets in the penultimate bar accurately. So when we're subdividing 30-second notes, we're hearing 4 of those in one beat, and we have to move from feeling 4 to feeling 3 in the triplets. So the triplets in the second to last bar, the tendency is going to be for them to rush. They're actually slower than that 30-second note subdivision that you would have, say, in like the third to last measure. So again, you might find it really helpful to kind of practice just making the transition from those 30-second note passages into that triplet 16th note passage into the penultimate bar. So I would spend some time kind of focusing on the transition from the third to last measure into that second to last measure so you can make sure that those triplets are played accurately. And again, as much work as you can do with a metronome here, it can be really helpful. So I'll just kind of play through that transition, the third to last bar moving into the second to last bar, so you can kind of hear how we're moving from this subdivision of 4 into a subdivision of 3. So make sure you're really playing those 16th note triplets accurately there in the second to last bar. Finally, this piece gives us very, very few dynamic indications. We have that very first opening phrase up to the repeat sign that's marked forte, and the second section is marked mezzo piano, and that is it. So I would invite you to really explore different ways of shaping phrases here. Do something with the music. Don't just play forte for the entire opening phrase. Really think about exploring some crescendos, diminuendos, moving through phrases and moving through lines, and really bring your personality to the table with this excerpt. There's a lot of freedom as far as the dynamic structure is concerned. So really this is an opportunity in the slow excerpt often is to make your own music. So feel free to really add any of those dynamic indications to help make this a much more interesting listen. next excerpt we're going to take a look at is number 24. This is the fast excerpt, is marked vivace. So again, making sure you're really paying attention to the metronome marking at the top, 92, not terribly fast. So one thing that's going to be really important in this, this particular excerpt is we want to make sure that we have really, really nice, strong pickups. So that's going to be, say, for example, the very first two notes that we play, pick up into the first measure, and in the first measure, we have those 2 16th note pickups at the end of the bar into the second measure. In the second measure, we have a 2 16th note pickup into the third measure. So anytime you have these 2 16th note pickups into the next group of phrases, I would really take some time to make sure we're really portraying those accurately. Nice, strong pickups, a little bit of separation between them, just to make sure that we're making those transitions to those new registers a little bit more clearly. So I would just spend some time kind of working on just those pickups, the 2 16th note pickups into the bars, and connecting them to the first 16th note of the following measure. So one example of this is just going to be that very first pickup in the beginning, spending a lot of time in making sure you have a clean transition from those pickups to the downbeat of the next phrase. Okay, and then the same thing if you look at the end of the very first line here. This is the end of bar 5. You have 2 16th note E's, and they're picking up into a C. So I'd also, again, practice those 2 pickups into the next downbeat. And just making sure you're getting really clean motion into those downbeats, but we're hearing the pickups as the start of the phrase and not as a tail end of the previous phrase. Another thing that's really helpful is to make sure here, very similarly to the slow etude, is that you're really emphasizing the first note under each of these groups of slurs. So we have 2 16th note patterns that are slurred together. What we really want to make sure that we're hearing is that underlying line of the first of those 2 16th notes, the first note under the slur. So we really want to hear the sort of descending scalar passage as we're working through this material. So if we were going to take a look at the second line down, the third measure, the fourth measure in, I'm going to play this with just the first of each note underneath the slur and really think about that being the line that we want to direct towards. So here's from the downbeat of the fourth measure of the second line. We want to hear that descending motion. So I'm going to play both the fourth measure and the fifth measure now to hear how those kind of move downwards here. So we're going to play from the fourth measure of the fifth line all the way up until the repeat sign, just playing those first notes under the slur so we can draw our ear towards that descending line. So that's the motion that we really want to be emphasizing anytime you have, and they're all descending patterns for the most part, when those coming down especially, really making sure we're banging out those first notes under the slur. Another thing that's really important in this excerpt is to play with a steady tempo. It's very easy when we have running strings of 16th notes for the time to want to push and pull a little bit. So lots of practice with the metronome here just to make sure we're really, really feeling those beats strongly, and you can kind of feel where you want to push a little bit with the tempo, we want to go a little faster, and sometimes where we want to drag. So making sure that we're being really consistent in our expression of that quarter note equals 92 is going to be really important here. And then lastly, very similar to the slow excerpt in this fast one, there are no dynamic markings other than the mezzo forte at the very beginning. So again, feel free to kind of make some phrases, make some music, do something here. It's great that you can play the notes and the rhythms. Those are all very important, but it's really important that you're also playing the music. Make it something that you would want to listen to and that other people would want to listen to as well. So feel free to take some thought and really create a line and some music that is your own. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch today. Best of luck preparing your auditions. Play great music.
Thanks so much for watching this Colorado All-State Prep video. If you have any questions or concerns, please visit music.colostate.edu for more information, including the opportunity to schedule an individual visit with the School of Music, Theater, and Dance. Good luck on your audition.